Before I get into the video, I just want to give a huge thanks to Playtonic Friends, as well as the developer of Demon Turf, Fabraz, for providing me with a super early Steam code of the game. This isn't sponsored or anything, I'm not getting paid to talk about Demon Turf, but I'm more than happy to showcase their game on the channel, especially since I've been looking forward to it ever since it was announced last year. I'll be showcasing the first area of the game throughout this video. I'll talk a little bit about what Demon Turf is all about, and I'll give my first impressions. So yeah, Demon Turf. It's a game I already talked about on this channel before, but if you haven't heard of it, it's a upcoming 3D platformer by indie studio Fabraz, a studio that previously worked on a 2D platformer, Slime Song. With Demon Turf being their first 3D platformer, it still manages to mix in 2D elements, most notably with the 2D illustrations used in its character sprites. Each of the levels, each of the worlds, the hub world, pretty much everything in this game is 3D modeled except for the characters. The 3D structures throughout the environment also have this toonish filter on them, making the illustrated character sprites not feel out of place at all. It matches the two dimensions perfectly, in my opinion, and at times it even feels like you're playing a cartoon. This unique art style isn't all that Demon Turf has to offer though. The gameplay is very solid too. I mean, after just playing the tutorial, I immediately fell in love with Demon Turf's movement. It's honestly on par, if not better, than the movement seen in other great platformers such as A Hat in Time, Banjo-Kazooie, and even 3D Mario games. The platforming is tight, the controls are responsive, and most levels have faster alternate routes to take if you look hard enough. In fact, I'm convinced the game was built with speedrunning in mind. Taking the time to practice levels and complete them as fast as possible is something I found myself doing quite often. I'm not a speedrunner by any means, quite the opposite, but I couldn't help myself. Practicing each zone until I found the fastest routes was genuinely really fun. And I haven't even played much past the first turf yet, just because I have been replaying the same zones to get good times. What's better is that you're awarded for going fast. If you beat each zone under a set amount of time, you get little trophy badges. Not to mention, Demon Turf also has online leaderboards for even more bragging rights. Moving on though, I want to talk a bit about some of the unlockables in this game, including mods and turf abilities. The main character you play as, Beebs, has a pretty alright moveset from the get-go, but you can expand her moveset by unlocking different turf abilities and by purchasing modifications. Turf abilities are essentially new abilities that are unlocked right before a boss battle, and they can greatly expand Beebs' movement and combat options. For example, the first turf ability unlocked is a hookshot, and this allows Beebs not only to reach new heights and access new areas, but it can also be used in combat to grab hold of enemies to then fling them around. Most prominently though, this hookshot is used a lot during the first turf boss, who, by the way, looks like somebody straight out of Parappa the Rapper. Nice. Speaking of turf abilities, you can change them on the fly using a selection wheel, and once unlocked, these abilities are at your disposal throughout the entire game. You can even revisit previous zones with them, and sometimes these abilities will open up entirely new routes to take. Outside of turf abilities, you can also purchase modifications in the game's hub world, like I mentioned. These mods include things like faster movement speed, a triple jump, and a slower fall. There's actually a pretty good number of these to unlock, but you can only equip 2 or 3 at a time, and none of these mods are necessary for completing the game or anything, but they can be helpful, especially if you're looking to speedrun certain zones. Sweets are the currency used for buying mods, and this currency also doubles as one of the game's main collectibles. These cake-shaped collectibles can be found scattered throughout each and every zone, but they're also rewarded by completing additional quests and challenges. And man, I was actually surprised by the amount of side content in this game outside of just the main platforming levels. Like, there's mini-games, time trials, and a bunch of other cool modes found around the hub world, some of which I haven't gotten to yet, but I can really appreciate when a smaller scale indie studio puts the time and effort into giving the player more things to do, going above and beyond to make an already good platformer even better. Even outside of these quests, you can collect dyes to customize Beebs' color, and there's also a photo mode, which, I mean, come on, what game nowadays doesn't have a photo mode? Despite all of the praise I've given Demon Turf though, there is one aspect of the game I'm not entirely sold on yet, and it's actually the combat. When fighting enemies in this game, you don't necessarily damage them. Instead, you kind of push them around using either light or charged attacks until you make them run into hazards. You can also make them fall off of the combat platform, or if they shoot projectiles, you can even use a charged attack to reflect that projectile back at them. And I don't have much of a problem with the combat system itself. I even like that it sort of calls back to Mario 64, where you would push the bullies around in stages like Lethal Lava Land. Am I the only one that sees that connection? Anyways, I don't dislike the combat system. I just kind of dislike the way it feels and how inconsistent it seemingly is. Sometimes the enemies slide around way too much, as if they were on ice or something, and other times they don't go far at all when it feels like they should. Maybe the combat will be tweaked somehow before launch, maybe I just need to get the hang of it. But as of right now, combat is the game's one and only low point for me so far. I know there are turf abilities and mods to improve combat abilities, so maybe I'll enjoy it the more I play. Once I unlock those abilities, we'll have to see. But I think that's about all I have to say about Demon Turf, based on the small portion I played of it at least. It's a game I'm really excited to play more of, and I highly recommend it if cool 3D platformers are your thing. Something else I'm excited to see are the mods this game will inevitably get, and I don't mean the in-game mods you can buy with sweets, I mean community-made zones, characters, and so on. Like seriously, I can see Demon Turf benefiting greatly from mod support, even years after launch. I mean, the game's not even out yet, and you have people making Bob-on Battlefield for Mario 64 a playable zone already. If A Hat in Time is anything to go off of, 3D platformers and mods go hand in hand. Maybe there could be some type of in-game level creator. But similar to A Hat in Time, I would love if Steam Workshop support was also implemented sometime after launch. The Workshop is a welcome addition to really any game on Steam, and Demon Turf is no exception. Steam isn't even the only platform Demon Turf will launch on either, as it's also coming to Xbox One, Series X, Epic Games Store, Switch, PS4, and PS5. It's like everything. If you want to play Demon Turf yourself, even before the game launches, there is a free demo available on the game's Steam page right now. And while you're at it, make sure to wishlist Demon Turf on Steam too, if you have any interest. As of right now, there is no release date, but the game is still aiming for a 2021 release. And when it releases, or when I'm able to, I'd be down to livestream the entire game, or maybe just a good chunk of the game here on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and thanks again to Playtonic and Fabraz for hooking me up with an early Steam code of Demon Turf. One last thing you should know about the game though before I end this video, is that the music is a bop and a half.